I'm not here today to convince you to use infographics. There's enough bad infographics out there. I'm here to convince you to do them properly. So this is going to be a quick list of things to think about, how to create infographics that will really have effect and will really reach your audience. Think about your message. Before I was an infographics designer, I was a journalist. I was a journalist for 12 years. And one thing I learned from that was it's all about content. Content first. What are you trying to say? What's the message? What's the point? Get a lot of infographics like this, and I apologise if the guys behind this are in the room. I hope not. Sorry if you are. People love infographics. People like creating them. They like putting numbers on pages with icons. One thing we have to ask every now and again is, did we actually need to create this infographic at all? What's it for? What's its point? What's its message? These are statistics from an event that took place. So we've got numbers of cocktails that were drunk and numbers of bouncers and the various data around the event. And I know exactly what happened. They got all these numbers written down and they thought, let's do an infographic. What's kind of the point of it? What does it do? Is it supposed to show how good the night was? If it was, then fine, but let's have more about the booze and the cupcakes. Let's lift that up. If it's about how safe the event was, then let's really focus on the number of security guards. Just putting numbers on a page doesn't really do anything, doesn't really help anybody. This is a non-educational example, but it's a nice one. It's from Oxfam. When we're thinking about message, this infographic absolutely says it all. The message is in the title. And the question that's in the title is answered by the headers of each section. Think about using that approach when you're doing infographics. Think the same way as with the SEO. Try and get a question in the headline. Try and get something up top that really sums up what your infographic is about. And that will instantly let the reader know, okay, this infographic's about food, or our school, or our training program, or whatever it is. But get it up there in the top, because then you are absolutely selling what you're trying to talk about. Next, audience. And this is, again, something who, having worked in commercial radio, I went from, and if anybody listens to Heart FM, I moved from Heart FM to Kerrang Radio. So overnight, having to read news bulletins about aimed at female audience in their 30s to 16-year-olds with skateboards. But immediately had to rethink that audience. So think about who your audience is. And again, it was mentioned earlier about audience. Your audience may not necessarily be parents. They could be kids, grandparents, whoever. Focus on who your audience is, and then go after them with your infographic. What does your audience want? What have they come to your infographic for? And there will be a reason. It might be that they've come to be entertained. Fine, no problem at all. They may have come to find out information. They may have come to find out a specific answer or some specific knowledge. Make sure you give them that knowledge. Make sure you give them what they need. Infographics like this, and we see a lot of these online. BuzzFeed do a lot of these. These kind of flowchart, these questions. And they may look quite simple, but they're incredibly powerful at helping people work out the answer to their question. So if you're trying to help people decide which program to sign up for, which school to go to, what to do afterwards. And this is another quick tip that, obviously with your infographics, an amazing way to promote what you're doing is not to necessarily talk about what you're doing, but offer some really useful advice. So if you can offer advice about the world that you're existing in and problems that your customers are facing or your audience is facing, then infographics can be great, because then they'll see this, find it useful, and share it onto their friends. As long as you put your name at the bottom, your logo at the bottom, you can get some nice traction that way. So these are very useful ways of reaching your audience. This is a nice example in tapping right into the audience, using the whole Harry Potter, Hogwarts idea of talking about boarding school, and actually what it's like being at boarding school, and what some of the truths, some of the myths. But I think it's a really smart way of tapping into that age group, that audience, taking something that they will know and leveraging it into quite a useful infographic. So think, what is your audience like? We asked before, what do they want? Now we're asking, what do they like? Information. This is the guts of your infographic. This is a section a lot of people forget about, worryingly. So before there was mentioned about how certain websites are thin. They have no real content. You see very thin infographics online. You see infographics that have no real content. They've just found some statistics and they've put them on a page and they hope that it'll get some traction. There's so much noise now with infographics. There's so many of them that good ones have to be really good nowadays. So think about your information. Think about what are you trying to say. Don't say too much. Think about some editing. Just because you've done a bunch of research into your particular subject for this infographic, or your organization has got a bunch of statistics, you've been going 200 years and you've got a whole history of data behind you, doesn't mean it's all relevant or interesting right now. So trying to cram every little bit of information onto the page can actually confuse the reader, and they leave going, I don't know, what was that all about? It's like walking into a noisy party. You can't quite get a handle on particular conversations, so keep it simple. This infographic about washing habits around the world, irrespective of the subject, look at the way they've dealt with the information. Very simple data set. They've just compared some very simple criteria across 5 different countries. So imagine if you were comparing different courses you ran, or you've got different sites. So your university or college has got different sites. Just trying to compare the different facilities. But that's a much more easy, digestible infographic than something like that where it's just a lot of noise and a lot of just too much going on. So I think that's a very clean way of doing it. Next, have a think about your structure. What does the infographic actually look like? You've got all your information sorted out, you've sorted out your message, you've highlighted your audience. How are you going to actually make your infographic into a shape? What's it going to look like? Well, first of all, try and have a structure. It's always good. This infographic took me a while to get my head around. I'm not quite sure. There just seems to be a lot of things on a page and lots of patterns, and it took me a while to realize it's sort of a calendar, but not really. So something like this is good, a timeline. If you're trying to explain a process, if you're trying to show maybe the history of your organization, one of your selling points is your history. A timeline can be great. When it was founded, when it expanded, various points along the way. You can really promote your authenticity and your, what's the word? Anyway, you know what I mean. So timelines are really great for this kind of thing, and also explaining processes and application processes. But also, this is a great example. This was full infographics on the left and just a zoom in on the right. And this is from Oxford University. A lot of information on the page, but structured really nicely. They've taken these 3 strands and split the page up into 3 sections. So we've got study, can't read that bit at the top, what's it say? Study, research and exams, and life at college. So essentially the 3 strands of student life. And they've put them on an infographic, given each one a different colour. And because they've used those colours, they can get more on the page because it's easier for the reader to navigate and move around the page. It's a very, very interesting example. And they've also understood about the student. They've also understood their audience. They've also understood what student life is like. What are the different elements of it? It's a very, very nice example there. Next, I want you to think about the graphics that you use. These can be used badly. There's a lot of websites out there that let you download icons for free, use different fonts, different typefaces, lots of different colors. And I'm going to give you some tool examples in a moment, and some of those will just let you loose on a whole graphic library. But it can really make a difference to how your infographic is understood and how your infographic is read. Some examples where they've just used everything. Kitchen sink, I call this. They found lots of different icons and lots of different colors, and they've put them all on a page. And you end up looking a bit clip arty. Ever remember clip art? Yes, we don't want to go down that route again. There's a reason why we've moved away from that now. But there's just too much going on. There's handwritten bits here, there's a sign, there's just lots of noise, lots of different stuff going on. And the problem is it's actually detracting from the information itself. It's actually making us realize that actually how much information is actually on here. Has it just all been disguised by pictures of dancing school children? And so a lot going on. Whereas an infographic like this keeps it simple. There's still a lot of information on the page. There's a lot happening. There's still graphics. It's not boring, but they've used a few colours. So if you are designing infographics, think very much about start simple, design it in black and white if you can, and then bring colour in as you need it. Then you end up with something like this. You've just used the colour where it's necessary. A similar colour scheme throughout, very classy, some really, really nice icons, and all the icons look the same. They're all from the same set. They're probably all from the same designer. But you can see the difference between this one and this one, which is just noise, hard to digest. Speaking of digest, I know we're coming to a break, so I will keep it short, I promise. Getting shut up, woman. So we've got so this really nice choice of icons here. Delivery, think about how your audience is going to get your infographic. How are you going to get it from your computer to them? This defines what it comes in, what format it comes in. How big it is, how small it is, how long it is, how thin it is. A lot of infographics nowadays are these long, thin ones. And thankfully, they're starting to die out now. But do you remember the ones that you'd go, oh, this is interesting, and you'd start scrolling, and you're probably on your phone, and you're scrolling, and then you go, oh, okay, and it's still going, and it's still going, and these are just too long. The problem with those big, long infographics, there's been no editorial control. No one has ever gone, stop with the infographic. Fit it on an A4 page and then we'll stop, okay? Instead, they've just gone, get the toilet roll out, let's print it. So these things go on forever. So think very much about someone trying to print that. People do still print things. Not everyone looks at things on their mobile phone. I know that it's obviously, mobile is a very important thing. But imagine if somebody does want to print it out. You see this a lot with, especially internally, documents get printed out in meetings and shown to people. So just think how the user might actually end up using your infographic or coming across it. So make sure they can read it. Get a lot of infographics now that you click on online and they're so small you can't read them. So just be mindful of that, mindful how big your image file is if you are pasting it online. And don't be restricted to a page either. Why does it have to be a big, long, thin infographic? Or why does it have to be A4? Why does it have to be printed as a flat, single sheet? Why couldn't it be a booklet? Why couldn't it be a postcard? Why couldn't it be a poster, stickers, stamps? Stickers for laptops, whatever. As long as you edit the information down and fill the space you've got, why couldn't you do something fun with it? Video is another big thing that's growing in infographics now. I'm not going to get too much into that because it's stupidly expensive. But keep in mind that video infographics are the way this is potentially going. But don't be restricted to something flat and boring. Get something printed on seat covers or cups or T-shirts. Get creative with this infographics. It's not about the physical format, it's about the information and how that's laid out. I did promise I'd teach you I'd show you some tools to actually do it yourself. Because you don't need designers to do simple things. You don't need designers to do interesting, useful infographics in-house. I can't believe I'm saying that as someone who designs infographics, but you don't. There's a lot of tools out there. Tools like Pictochart. Pictochart's the one I teach when I teach infographic design. It's got a really good array of, I'm not on commission, by the way, I wish I was, but Pictochart's got a really nice array of icons and graphics and fonts, and you can bring your own data into it. So it's a really, really useful tool. Infogram, great for creating quick charts and graphs. Easily as well, Canva's great for really beautiful photography and data. So there's plenty of tools out there. You just type in infographics tool into Google, and there are dozens. There's new ones being created every day. So this slide's probably already out of date. So just bear in mind that you can do these things yourself. You don't have to find a designer. I've also seen people use PowerPoint to create infographics. If that's your tool, if you love PowerPoint and you're really good at it, why not use it? You've got all the elements there. You've got your shapes, you've got your words, you've got your pictures, you've got your charts and your graphs. So why not use PowerPoint if that's the tool that you already know? Obviously Illustrator, if any of you are any graphic designer or illustrators in the room, Obviously, Illustrator's great. I do a lot of my more complicated work in Illustrator. Also, some people use Paint. I had to Google to make sure Paint was still a thing. I'm a Mac user, trendy designer, use a Mac, but I didn't even realize that Paint was still a thing, but it is. So if you're creating something really quick and simple, why not use Paint? Keep it simple. You don't need all these. But as I say, these are specifically infographics design tools. So there's a lot out there you can do, and I think the key is to think about, like I said, think about your message. Think, what are you trying to say? Think about your audience. Think about your structure, your information, how you're going to actually get it out to the public, how you're going to get the infographic from your computer in front of their face. And get creative. Really not, this is a blackboard drawn infographic and then photographed. I've seen infographics created out of balloons, Lego, and then it's just been photographed with some text over the top. Get creative, especially if you're working in places full of young people. Let the young people get creative. Get them involved in the process. Help them create fun things. I've seen people create line charts with kids with string. Then it's been photographed from out a window. Perfect. What a great way to show what a lively and incredible organisation you work for if you're actually using the young people to help you create something fun. So that's it. I said I'd keep it short because I know we're heading into a break. If you have any questions about infographics, what to do, help, anything, please do get in touch, and thank you very much.